How to speak English fluently. Hello, friend. Welcome to the English Spoken Stories YouTube channel. I hope you all are doing well today. In this video, I'm going to tell you how to speak English fluently. Learning English is a big journey, but we can improve our English with such a beautiful story. Let's listen to this story. This will improve your English speaking skills unprecedentedly. Do you want to improve your English? Do you want to speak English more fluently? You see, the English language changed my life. I was born in Hong Kong, so English is not my first language. My first language is actually Cantonese. My second language is Mandarin because my mother is from Taiwan, and my third language is English. So when I first immigrated to North America, I couldn't speak a word of English. I know some of my fans. Rumor says that you're tuning into my videos because you want to learn how to speak the English language. I find that kind of interesting. So today, I want to share with you 5 steps to improve your English fluency. The 5 things that I did to learn the English language. Step number 1. To improve your English fluency, it's actually very simple, and that is, don't give a damn. That's right, don't give a damn. Speak whenever, wherever, however. It doesn't matter if you speak with an accent. I still speak with an accent, and I talk to tens of millions of people every single month. It doesn't matter. Forget how people will judge you. Forget how people will think of you. None of that matters. Just speak as much as you can. If they don't understand you, say it again. If they still don't understand you, say it again. Just keep saying it. I remember because I spoke with such a thick accent, it sounded like Jackie Chan. I can still speak with some Chinese accent, like, hey, yeah, this, then that kind of stuff. But you just speak as much as you can, because that's how you get comfortable. You wouldn't guess it, but if you're always thinking about it, oh, understanding the culture, understanding philosophies. You need to understand the language. So when I learned the English language, I also learned a lot about other things. The culture business, of course, because that's what I do. So language isn't just something you use to communicate. Language is also something you can train your mind with. So understand that. Step number 4, immersion. You have to immerse yourself. When I was learning the English language, I would listen to music every single day. I would listen to English music, English songs, and try to sing along just to learn it. It was very difficult. I was listening to rap music, which was way too difficult. I gave that up, but I was watching English movies without subtitles. At first, I couldn't understand much. I understood maybe 5% of it. Then I would understand, oh, that's what she means. Gradually, I could understand more, 10%, 20%. And as my English improved, I started to understand the movie more and more. So you have to immerse yourself. Talk in English, listen to English music, watch English movies. Do as much of that as you can. Naturally, you'll pick up the slang, certain stories or phrases like that. That's how you learn the English language. Then, make it fun. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I have to study the language. No, make it fun. Talk to people who speak English, interact, connect, read, watch, listen. That's how you get good. That's how I got good. Step number 5. To improve your English fluency, hang out with people who speak English. I know it sounds so obvious, but that's how you do it. I remember in college I would see these groups of people. The Chinese students would only hang out with Chinese students. The Korean students would hang out with Korean students. The Japanese students would hang out with Japanese students. But I did the opposite. I would go and hang out with people who spoke English. I would hang out with Caucasians, people who grew up locally, who spoke perfect English, and I would just talk and hang out. We'd go to the library, and I would try to talk as much as possible, listen, ask questions, just to get comfortable. Another thing I did was actually get a Korean girlfriend who spoke English. I'm not saying that's the only way to learn. But if you want to learn a new language, take someone who speaks the language. You'll be shocked at how quickly you pick it up, how quickly you can pick up the language. Let me give you a bonus tip, a bonus step if you want it. Step number 6. Go into a state of overlearning. If you're thinking about learning a language, let's say you're here and you want to get to this level of fluency. The fastest way to get there is to go into a state of overlearning. Let's take an exercise example. If you want to have stronger biceps, let's say you can only lift 20 pounds. That's the amount of strength you have. If you want to make that 20 pounds easy to lift, guess what? Train with 25 pounds, train with 30 pounds. That's over-preparation, over-learning. That's what I mean. You want to stay in over-learning mode. What I did, because I'm in business, not only learning the English language, but I was also learning how to sell, how to close, how to do marketing. I didn't just focus on the day-to-day English for communication. I also used English at a much higher level where there's something to lose. It wasn't just basic communication. It was English for business, where money was involved. That's how I became a fluent English speaker. Now, I'm sure that you've had moments in your learning journey where you've felt like you progressed very quickly. It comes easily, you're motivated, it's fun, but at some point you hit a wall and you feel like you'll never speak fluently, confidently, and naturally. You are not alone. This feeling of being stuck is often called the intermediate plateau, and I've been there. It can be a comfortable place. You can speak and understand in many situations, but for most of us it's not enough. We want to enjoy the language as freely as we do our mother tongue. As a native speaker, I've never had the experience of learning English as a second language. So I want to bring you an expert who has successfully done this. Here at Real Life English, if you listen to our podcast, chances are you've already heard me on there. But today, I'm here to share a little bit of my story and how I went from speaking zero English to the level I have today. I'm just like you. I'm an English learner myself. I had to learn English from scratch here in Brazil. I've never been abroad, so let me tell you how I did it, and hopefully that'll give you some ideas and inspiration for your English journey. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell down below, because every week we put out videos to help you speak English with confidence and naturally. So, let's get started. Though I grew up kind of watching movies with my parents in English and listening to music in English as well, I didn't have my speaking skills developed yet. I remember that I would try to read stuff out loud from the books that I was studying with, and it was a disaster because, the words wouldn't flow. I had no idea how to pronounce certain words. For example, lobe. Do you know it? It was really bad and frustrating, but I kept going because, at the end of the day, that was all I did for pretty much 3 years, from 15 to 18. Most of the time, I would study with books, And that was the first mistake I made. I'm here to tell you this because I took way too much time, too long to start speaking. You don't want to do that. At that time, 20 years ago, it was much more difficult to find people to practice my speaking with, so I just studied with books. But nowadays we have so many more cool resources, like apps. And speaking of apps, I can tell you about the Real Life English app, as you probably know. With the app, you can have conversations with people from all around the world at the touch of a button. Plus, you can listen to our podcast there, and with the transcripts, it's just amazing. So if you haven't downloaded the app yet, make sure you do that, because that is one of the resources that, for example, I wish I had when I was learning English and trying to improve my speaking 20 years ago. But then something magical happened in my life when I turned 18. I started working, and I have to say that my work experience, the jobs that I've had in my life, were crucial in my English development, especially my speaking and listening skills. Let me explain. My first job was at a drugstore, and I worked as a cashier there. But there was something interesting about that drugstore, because that year they would see me at lunchtime, kind of eating and studying at the same time. Pretty quickly, I became the English guy at the drugstore. So every time a foreign customer came in, I was the one to be called, "Hey, Chicago! There's a foreign person there. Go help that person." Then I would go there and speak in English with those people and try to help them out. I remember one time, it was kind of funny, I was at the cash register and I was talking to this American customer. She was a lady, and I was trying to talk to her in English and explain to her that I had never been abroad and everything, but I was still learning the language. Then she said, "Oh yeah, I've never been abroad." And then she kind of stopped me and said, "Oh, I think you mean abroad." I was like, "Oh, abroad. Thank you very much for the correction. I appreciate that." That was one example of how having these little interactions with customers helped me. Sometimes I would say something wrong, like abroad, and then the person would help me by correcting me. I had many of these small interactions at that time that were really useful. This is another tip I can give you. Be open to correction, because if somebody corrects your English, your pronunciation, or the way you use a word, this is actually great for speaking. I also spent a lot of time speaking to Americans on the phone, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for a year. So, in a way, it was my version of living abroad. It was my version of having an exchange program because I was really speaking to natives for a year, and that really helped me with my speaking and listening skills. But it's important to mention that I only got that job because I already knew enough English to get that job. So all those years I spent before, working, studying, and learning, paid off, because those years allowed me to get this job. And then I improved even more. So here's what I have to say to you. Keep learning. Keep developing yourself and start looking for job opportunities that allow you to use your English on a daily basis. Because then you're going to improve even more. Between those jobs, that was actually the moment when I really started to create my own immersion in English. By then, I was already kind of using English in my daily routine at work, and I was really serious about it. I made sure that I did everything in English, watching movies in English, listening to music, love rock and roll, for example. I always listened to my favorite bands in English. With my very first paychecks, actually, that's what I did. We didn't have Netflix at that time or streaming services, so I actually would go to media to learn English. By the way, if you want to know my exact step-by-step process that I used to improve my English with movies and TV series, let us know in the comments. Maybe I can make another video in the future for you, explaining how I did it. All right, finally, there is one weird thing that happened in my life that really helped me take my English to the next level, and that was becoming an English teacher. I started teaching English at 21 years old, so it's been 14 or 15 years now already. And I have to say that teaching English and helping people with their English was actually an experience that really helped me master the English language to a whole other level. Because, you know, when you teach, it's like you are learning again. If I have to teach a class or help someone, I have to prepare. I have to study the topic myself. I have to be familiar with the topic. I have to think of different ways to explain things, give examples. And that mental process really helps me better understand the topic so I can explain it to my students. So it's a win-win. If you teach somebody, you win because you are kind of revising information and studying it again, and the other person is also benefiting because they are learning new stuff with you. I've had the pleasure of working with wonderful, more experienced teachers over the years.